that's why if you have a strong-willed child who is awful for you, they're usually awesome for other people because other people don't have all the anxiety, right? They don't react. Like when other kids come to your home, you are nicer to other kids unless you're just a horrible person. But right, you're nicer and you're more patient with other people's kids than your own. So it's just kind of the way. Good. We'll do some things for little kids and then all the way up to the big kids. Good. Who else? Yes. It's awesome you get to leave, unless they're living with you. Good. I think you should be teaching this class tonight. You have a lot of kids, so good. I'll try to hopefully we'll give some things that help lots and lots of little ones running around at any one time. By the way, if you have a ton of kids or a few kids or even one child, you should have a fair amount of chaos, right? That's just normal family life isn't supposed to be all perfect. It's supposed to be kind of messy. Do what? No, it's not supposed to be. It would be, yes, yes. You are. We'll deal with the control freak thing. We will. Then that's why you had kids to work that out of you, so you can stop being a jerk. Because I had to learn that as well. So good. I like your honesty, though. What else? Oh, okay. Good. Love it. So if you have a handout, okay. So you're basically saying your daughter's bad behavior directly came from you and it's your fault. Okay, good. I like the honesty. So it's not your fault, but they do learn things from us, and we'll see. If you do have a handout, open up to the second page. You'll see a chart with 3 columns. And the first column is about kids who have very, very busy brains. Like, open up inside. Can you see it? See, a lot of you have kids with very, very busy brains. And so it feels like they're not even in control of what's inside. Some of your kids don't feel in control of their bodies, so they have sensory issues, third column. But if I don't feel like I have control of myself inside, well, then I'm going to control other people. I don't play board games well because I'm going to change the rules of the game, cheat, or quit. That's not because I'm a jerk. It's because I'm not confident, and if I lose, that makes me a loser. If I cheat, that is a way for me to guarantee the outcome of the game to try to control things, right? And so we'll see when kids are melting down. A lot of it is everything feels like it's out of my control. And all we usually say is, you need to calm down. And your kids are like, you don't even know how to calm down. You're 30. So chill. So the controlling, bossy, if your daughter has a play date, she's going to control the play date. If things don't go her way, then she's going to complain or whine or try to dictate that. Like, that all makes sense to me. I don't like it, but it makes sense to me. So we'll go through some different ways to handle that. Some of that is confidence issue. Right? If I feel confident, I don't have to control other people. Some of it is, some of us are just wired that way. Like my friend over here, he has control issues like I do. I like things to be a certain way. Well, my advice is don't have children or get married if you are like that, because other people stink. They ruin everything for you, right? It'd be better. Look, you could be sitting in a little apartment by yourself playing video games tonight. Instead, you have to grow up, right, and deal with people who ruin your agenda all the time. Because is that not what, that's what, yeah, because you're a control freak, and now you've got a 5-year-old who's bossy like you, so we'll deal with that. Good. Yes. Okay, 2 more minutes, 6:35. Good, we'll get into that. Yes, you had your hand up before, and I crossed it. Okay. Okay. Yes, I like that. That means they're normal. Are they boys? One boy. Good. Means they're normal kids, right? Now we'll go through that. What I want to get to is seeing and think about this is where does, it's not an excuse for it, but where does the sassiness, where's the talking back come from? Like some kids, it is a control issue. Like if you have a strong-willed child in here and you tell your child to do something, their first response should either be no or ask you why, right? And so the why sounds like defiance. And your response is going to be, why? Because I told you so, and I'm the authority figure in the home. They're like, really? Sure don't seem like it, right? And they're, yeah, I'll show you. And so what they're really going for right there, and I'd write this down because you got to dig deeper a little bit, is context. They're strategic kids. They're big picture thinkers. And when you tell them something, here's the process they're going to go through. They're going to think, my mom, my dad just told me to do something. One, do I want to do that? Because they're not people pleasers. They're not compliant little kids. They want to figure out. Two, is it worth the consequence? How many of your kids will weigh the consequence? And they're like, yeah, it was worth it. Right? Yeah, throw the toys away. You know what, Mom? I'll help you box them up because there's some kids who could really use them. And you're like, seriously? Right? And so, and then the third question is, inside is, well, maybe I could do it a different way. And your natural response is going to be, there's no need to do it a different way because I told you how to do it. And I'm the authority figure. It's my way or the highway. You're going to do it my way. And that is, you're perfectly justified in taking that approach. I'll just tell you, you will have power struggles with this child their entire lives. They will end up hating you. You will hate them. You will not have a relationship, and they'll end up in jail. I'm kidding, not the jail part. But it won't work. It won't ultimately, they're never going to say, you know what, Mom, Dad, you're right. You guys have so much wisdom. Right? After you lectured me again, I realized that you're like, it's not going to work. So I want to show you a different way that isn't giving in to them. But them wanting to do things a different way is actually a really good thing. It's that they want ownership of their lives. For those of you who are people of faith, they don't want to believe what you believe because my mommy and daddy want me to. They want to wrestle with it themselves. They want to question everything. And they want to come to it on their own, which is actually better anyway. Rather than your middle schoolers parenting what you want to hear, parroting what you want to hear, and meanwhile they're doing all kinds of things because they're sneaky. At least a strong-willed child, your daughter's going to just say, Mom, I don't want to do that. It's a dumb idea. At least you know where you stand. Do you want to kick this off? I'm sorry I kept going a little bit long.
Can everybody hear me so I don't have to use a microphone? Is that...
Yeah, just yell.
Okay. I am the director of kids ministry here at Redeemed Teen Church, and I'm super excited to have Mr. Kirk Martin speak to join us today. Thank you for everybody who's here. I've getting to see some of you and meet some of you. And so just wanted to say a quick prayer before I'll let Kirk take it away. Oh, one more note. If you haven't filled out or gotten a card, we're doing a giveaway, a drawing giveaway. Does anybody need a card? I didn't grab one. Okay.
Free gas for a year. Is that it?
Oh,
I'm just kidding.
Book? Almost as good. It's going to be a book. And Mr. Kirk, you're selling seeds, yes?
Yeah.
So we will purchase one and give one away. There will be 2 winners.
Perfect.
So fill that out for us.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Then once we kind of get settled, I'll do a quick prayer to get us started. And we will go.
While we're doing this really quickly, how many of you have toddler age kids? Like really little. Okay, do some there. Elementary school? Good, we'll hit on that. Middle school? Okay, good luck. Just kidding. High school? Everybody gives up after middle school. So, good. Well, good. That helps me. That helps me. Okay. This one's already on.
Okay, can you hear me? Great. Okay, thanks again for being here. I'm going to say a word of prayer over our evening together, and then we'll let Mr. Kirk get started. All right? Dear Lord, just thank you so much for this day, this beautiful day, and this time together. Thank you for the wisdom that you're going to share through Mr. Kirk Martin this morning, or this evening, I mean. Thank you for the children that we have and the blessings that they are, and for calling us to be parents and to disciple those children. We just ask a blessing over this evening, that everything that is said is just your words, Lord, and anything that is not, just be forgotten. We just pray for our children to have fun and fellowship while they're away from us, and for us to be able to let go of any distractions or anxiety with our kids being in a new place. And just bless the rest of our week and our travel on our way home as well, Lord. In your Son's name we pray. Amen.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Round of applause, please, for the church, for hosting us, the pastor, for everybody running sound, all of those things. So let me do a very quick thing up front. I like to do this sometimes to set the stage. So those of you with toddler age kids, remember, a toddler's job is not to be productive or efficient, right? Their job is to basically ruin your agenda, get into everything, crawl everywhere, put things in their mouths, and you're going to be tempted the whole day to say, no, 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 stop, don't do that. Remember, whenever you say no to something inappropriate, say yes to something appropriate. Give them ways to use that energy. But don't freak out so much with these little ones, because their job is to basically explore and be curious about things. It's just that they're not efficient, so it's going to frustrate you all the time, right? Younger kids, I love obstacle courses. Many of our kids have sensory needs. You'll see they push up and press up against things all the time, hide under things. They like the physical pressure, so I like an obstacle course in the basement or the backyard. Cheap stuff. Don't spend a lot of money on your kids. Stuff they can crawl under, crawl over, climb through. You can wake them up in the morning and say, hey, guess where I hid your breakfast this morning? Out in the obstacle course. Bet you can't find it. Now, people laugh at that, but it's extremely effective for the strong-willed child. Because going in and saying, hey, you have school today, get up. Why would you say that? Hey, you have to go to that place where you're going to be on red on the behavior chart all day long, where you don't have any friends and where your teacher's not going to like you. Ready? Because that's what it feels like for many of your kids. So I wake them up with, there's a mission, something different. Some of your kids would be perfectly happy out in the backyard just eating with the chipmunks. And guess who benefits? You and your easy kids get to be inside without the strong-willed child, because he's happy outside and he's away from your annoying voice. True? Everybody wins. Don't be afraid with the strong-willed child to do different things that work. If that child's happy out, look, you could take some mac and cheese and just throw it in the yard, and that kid would lay in the grass and eat and be happy as a clam. True? So don't be afraid to do that. Plus, it'll build up his immune system. So, anyway, younger kids do some things. We'll get into a lot more with younger kids, but I wanted to hit the middle school thing really quickly. Middle school is a tough age. I think it's kind of a hibernation phase, because the kids, a lot of hormonal things going on. They're transitioning from being a little kid to being, a kind of a grown-up kid. I just want you to be patient with those kids. Do any of you have a middle school age boy in particular? Oh, okay. If he's home right now, here's what he's doing. Nothing. He's not doing his chores, and he's not doing homework. He's playing video games. He's probably sitting in the same hoodie sweatshirt he's worn for 17 straight days, even though it's almost 100 here, almost. It feels like it does. That's what they do. And what happens with a middle school child, and even younger, is you start to notice all the things they're doing wrong or the things that they're not doing. And your anxiety kicks in, because you begin to think, who would possibly hire this child? Who is going to marry this child? He's going to be living in my basement till he's 29. And we start lecturing a lot. And if you've ever noticed this with the strong-willed kids, the more you lecture, the more they resist and shut down. The more, and what happens also is we tend to only focus on the negative. Forgive me for the language here, and forgive me, church and God, for this, because all the words that come out of my mouth may not come from God. So, but I want to be real about it. What eventually comes out inside is, screw you. Screw you. Because all I ever hear is what I'm not doing right, and nobody ever notices what I do right. And I will tell you, one way to motivate strong-willed kids is not to pick out everything they're doing wrong or that you don't like. It's to affirm them. This doesn't sound like it'll work, but it will. You affirm them for what they're already doing well. Now, some of you are going to have to look for it, right? Like, hey, good job bringing the fork back from the table to the sink last night, right? Instead of pointing out, right, like, you have to affirm that, because they want to please, they just don't always know how. So we'll get into that. Older kids, I'd encourage you, in case I don't do this example later, but I'll try to, mission and mentor. The goal is this. It is to make a list of their gifts, talents, and passions. What are they good at doing? What do they love doing? Who do they connect well with? Little kids, older kids, adults, seniors, animals. And then find ways, second step, find ways for your kids to use their natural gifts, talents, and passions outside the home. Accountable, thirdly, accountable to another adult, because we established your kids are awesome for other people, horrible for you. Other adults can hold your kids accountable in ways that you can't, and they also see good things in your child. Let me just get this out of the way and do this example for those of you who have older kids. Here's an example. So we were at a workshop one night, and a mom sitting right over here was like, oh, I've got this 12-year-old daughter. She won't do her schoolwork. She's got a bad attitude. What consequences can we give her? And I was like, none. Because if it was consequences we're going to work, you would have found them by age 12, right? So I said, we have 2 minutes. I don't want to know everything bad about your child. I already know everything bad about them. I already know what your kids do wrong. Tell me what she loves. She loves soccer, and she was really good with younger kids. So I was like, Mom, here's what I want you to do. Go out in this community. Find somebody who coaches little kids in soccer, and go up and say, hey, I've got this daughter, age 12, loves soccer, great with little kids. You look a little bit overwhelmed. Would you mind if she came out one night and helped you with practice? The guy was like, sure, we can give it a shot. If you can get the other adult to ask your child personally, it works better. Because mom just saying, oh, honey, I have a great idea. Yeah, not going to do it because it came from you. Right, it's immediate shutdown. But that coach said, Rebecca, I've heard that you love soccer. Could you come out Tuesday night? So Tuesday night, this girl with a bad attitude, doesn't do schoolwork, goes out, helps his coach, comes home. No bad attitude, great attitude. You know why? Because at the end of the practice, 11 little girls gave her a hug. Because little girls love the older girl. And they she felt like she had something to give. Those of you with kids who struggle with anxiety and sometimes even depression, sometimes just talking about that makes it worse. Right? Like sometimes, like, we need to go and see a therapist every week and talk about your anxiety. You're going to create a really anxious child. Sometimes we need to normalize anxiety. Of course you're a little bit anxious. You should be anxious. You're a teenager. It's a weird time of life. If you feel a little bit anxious, that's normal. That child who doesn't like to go to new places. Of course you don't want to go to that new Taekwondo class. There's new people there. The instructor might not be nice to you. You might not even be good at it. Of course. So you normalize things. Of course you're a little bit nervous. But here's a great phrase after. But I believe that you're capable of going, having a really good time. So I normalize it so they don't think there's something wrong with them. Right? It's schoolwork. We're getting off track a little bit, but if you don't mind, I'll just roll with it. We'd say things like, oh, honey, that assignment isn't hard. If you would just focus, you would be done in 45 minutes instead of it taking 3 hours. Well, if the assignment's not hard, but it's hard for me, then I must be stupid. So it would be better to say, of course you're struggling with that writing assignment. Getting all those thoughts out of your head onto paper, of course it's hard. But I believe you're capable of doing a really good paper when I give you some tools. We'll talk about tools later. Give you some tools because you've got great ideas. But it's going to be hard. So you normalize it, right? I didn't say, of course that's hard, so let's not do it. Of course you don't want to go, so let's just stay home and eat donuts. I didn't say that. I just normalized it. And that's a very important thing to do. So for this teenage girl, the coach says, hey, I could use your help Saturday. We've got a game. Would you come out and help? How many of your kids love helping other people? It's a huge thing. So I want teachers using, I could really use your help. With your daughter, by the way, 5-year-old strong-willed, look, if you would have told me last year, she's going into preschool, I'd been like, hey, you're going to get calls from the preschool because she's not going to listen. She's not going to follow directions. She's not going to sit still in stupid circle time because circle time is uncomfortable. I don't want to sit stupid crisscross applesauce for an hour listening to someone talk about things I'm not interested in. No offense to the teachers, but that's what it feels like. Your daughter has a million ideas in your head, and when she wakes up in the morning, she's got ideas. You and teachers are just getting in the way of her day. Now, this isn't to say let her do whatever she wants, but I expand the boundaries. So when your daughter walks into my classroom, I've got jobs ready for her. Oh, Rebecca, I could really use your help. Can you go do X? Or I bet you can't, because your daughter thinks that she's 13 already. So I'm going to give her harder things and then say, that was awesome how you did it. Rather than, Rebecca, if I have to tell you one more time, see, as soon as a kid starts to get in that, they're like, everybody's giving me attention and intensity for doing things wrong. What am I going to do? I'm going to keep doing that. So I'm going to proactively, if you want to, notes would be, I create successes and I give her tools to succeed. We'll get to that later, but it's a good little note, and it'll keep me on track. So this girl, Rebecca, goes on Saturday morning, helps the coach. At the end of practice, 2 sets of parents come up and say, Rebecca, we don't really know you, but our daughters talk about you all the time, right? Our daughters are struggling in school. Do you think you would consider tutoring them? Not knowing this girl has not done schoolwork for years. Now she has a reason to care about stupid school because she feels needed by other people and she has something to give. And the coaches said, if you want to come work with the girls that I work with, be average, no mouthing off to your mother, and get your chores done. And to that coach, she will say, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, because that coach has something she cares about. So for those of you with older kids, I would write that down. You have to discover what your child cares about. Not what, I know what you care about, good grades and good behavior. And your child is, if you have a strong-willed child, they're like 0 for 2. I'm not really good at behavior, and I don't really like school. So why would I even try anymore? I'm just going to shut down. So we, as you know, we're talking about the strong-willed child because that's what I've been talking about. So let me start here with there's no real definition, but this is how we describe these kids. They tend to be very bright kids. They're not always academically motivated, but they're very bright. They just tend to use their intelligence to argue with you. They're like little cops, judges, and attorneys all rolled into one little beautiful package. They will use everything you say against you, right? When these kids, like your daughter, wake up in the morning, they have an agenda. They know what they like, they know what they don't like, and what they don't like is anything that you or a teacher wants. Sometimes they're good for teachers and horrible for you. But anything you want them to do, so there are going to be power struggles literally over everything. And you were about to spend her childhood saying this, if you would just do what I asked you to do, you would be done in 7 minutes. But you'd rather argue with me for 7 hours or days or weeks or years and lose everything else. That's your daughter, right? And she will even take a consequence that is harder than if she just did what you said, right? And how many of you found consequences don't work for your kids? This is the first thing we do. And all good dads are like, well, my way or the highway, I'm going to show them. I'll bet $1,000. I'll put $1,000 on a 6-year-old. That 6-year-old will own you, right? Not talking about giving in, but you're going to have to do it a different way because these kids have a fight or flight mechanism in them, and they will just take it. Because the good part of it is this. Look, these kids are harder to raise. They are. How many of you had a compliant child first? Anybody? And you were like, we are such good parents. And then strong-willed child came around, and literally nothing works. So the good thing is, it's that they want the ownership, and we'll get into that a little bit. The strong-willed child. Oh, really quickly on consequences. I'm good with harsh consequences. I like firm, even, matter-of-fact consequences. I just don't like a lot of drama. I don't like getting it personal, and I don't want you talking about your childhood and after all you do for them, right? That's your own issue, moms. If you're doing too much for your kids, that is a manipulative tool. Oh, by the way, do I have permission to be really blunt with you? Good. I'm old, so just take it. It's good wisdom. And you're from Texas. You can take this stuff. So half of you are military. You'll be able to take it. So, look, that's a manipulative tool. My way or the highway, what I learned from my dad, my dad was career military, so he didn't have a lot of tools. So my dad was fear and intimidation with his 4 sons. That's a form of manipulation. I'm bigger. I've got this deep voice. I was in the military, and he made us cower. The mom's thing sometimes of, after all I do for you, is also manipulative. Because here's what you're saying. Because I've done so much for you, you owe me. See, these are generational patterns that we have from our moms and dads that keep replicating. And part of our goal tonight is to break those patterns. There's no blame or guilt. We all do this stuff. Look, you don't even know why you do half the stuff you do. A lot of it's from your childhood. I promise as you get older, look, you guys don't even know why you married each other. You think you were in love, but it wasn't, because he reminded you of your dad, and you were so comfortable because you had to manage your dad's emotions the whole time growing up. So when you met this guy, it was like, kind of reminds me of that. You didn't know it at the time, but then you find out, I just married my dad, right? We all do stuff like that. When you're my age, you'll start to realize you don't even know what you're doing. You're driven by all this stuff, so I want you to have mercy and compassion on each other and on your kids. So, I don't know where I was right then, but it was good, and I liked it. So, thank you. Consequences. Look, consequences are important to set boundaries. Fine. But consequences don't change human behavior. If they did, all of us in here would look a lot different than we do now, right? Jails may be not as full, right? Consequences don't change behavior. Relationships change human behavior, right? So we'll get into that a little bit. So, strong-willed kids, a couple other things. I believe you're going to have to draw them and lead them. You cannot push them. If you try to push them, if you stand over them and do not give them some space, they will always, always, always resist you, even if it hurts them more. I draw them, I lead them. Here's the hardest part of a strong-willed child to me. I believe that they will never, ever, ever do things the way that you want it done. They're not going to do it your way. And you are going to wrestle with this, either as yourself, with yourself or as a couple, and say, but we're the authority figure. Why can't we get her to do this? If you hang on for a second, I'll show you a different way to handle this without giving in to them. But they're not going to do it your way. They're not. And your control issues are going to get in the way, right? Because you want them done a certain way. And so we'll deal with that in a minute. Here's where our experience with these kids come from. I'll do it in a minute or less. The big tall kid that was in here is our son Casey. He's the firstborn. Came out of the womb with boxing gloves on. Loved to argue. All of the qualities that we hated in him when he was a kid, and we did hate those qualities at times, and I didn't like him when he was little because he was just difficult until I found out it was really my issue. But all those qualities that irritated us when he was a kid are now the very qualities that make him successful as an adult. That pig-headed obstinance turns into persistence, right? Your daughter at age 5, she's just going to struggle as a kid. She is. Childhood doesn't suit her that well. She's going to be ready to move on very, very quickly, right? You put her in the right situation, she's awesome. In other situations, it's just going to be tough. But she's worth the time to put in, right? They're awesome after a brief stint in jail, when they get out, they rule the world. I'm kidding. They're not going to go to jail. Just seems like it at times. So we decided to open up our home. So rather than bring kids into a therapeutic office to work with them one-on-one, we wanted to have 8, 10, 12, 15 strong-willed kids on the spectrum in our home where we could control the environment. So we would change plans on them at the last minute. Why? Because your kids can't deal with transitions, and changes in plans freak them out. There's the loss of control, right? But you said we were going, right? The relentless arguers, that's not fair. And then, no, that's not right. That sense of justice. That all comes in that first column on that chart. So what we would do is we would frustrate them, which is not hard, so that we could teach them in the moment how do you deal with frustration. So over the course of a decade, we had about 1,500 of those kids in our home. One of the main things I learned from these kids is this. Observe your kids. This next week, observe them. Watch what they're doing. Your kids will tell you everything they need by what they do. Let me give you a quick example. We had a lot of kids come into our home who would be in our home, and they would take the cushions off the sofa and then lie down on the hard part of the sofa. Any of you have kids who do that? And your first figures. So I love your daughter. I just don't want to raise her. So, look, first outward thing that I feel is, you're weird. Why are you so weird? Then you step back and you think, okay, how is that serving them? What are they getting out of that? 3 quick things that come from that. One is, the need is they like the physical pressure. So, sleeping. Some of your kids, put them in a sleeping bag. Shove them in a closet. Just don't tell anyone you're doing that. Many of your kids will sleep really, really well because they like laying on the floor. They like being in confined spaces. 2, instead of doing homework at the kitchen table, put a blanket over the kitchen table. Now you have a fort. Forts are cool. It's dark under there. They can't see. So now you give them a flashlight or you give them matches. That'll stimulate their brains, right? But you do it differently. Don't be afraid to ask teachers and say, hey, my daughter does her schoolwork a lot better underneath the table at home. Do you think when she takes the next test or does a writing assignment, she could sit underneath her desk as long as she doesn't bother other kids? Why not? She puts a blanket over her head? Yeah, so her daughter puts a blanket over her head because they like the space. They don't want to be watched all the time, right? They don't, and nobody does really. But they're very, very into that. And then the third thing, and this is a weird thing. So these kids are very volatile at times. Many of your kids are very emotional, so they get upset. So I like code words when kids get upset. Have you noticed when your kids are upset, if you talk too much, it makes them even more angry, provokes them to anger. Also, by the way, we talk way too much. Honey, do you want to identify your emotions? Do you know how irritating that is? Right? When you're having a bad day and your spouse comes home, honey, do you want to talk about your emotions? You want to identify them? Yeah, I've identified resentment and anger towards you. That's what the kids are looking for. It's like asking a teenage boy, honey, you need to express your emotions. Oh, I'll express them. It's not the way, right? It's just icky. What they're looking for, especially kids, is I'm pretty clear what your emotions are right now. It's usually you're frustrated, you're anxious, or you're disappointed. Those are three common ones. What the child is looking for is not to talk about them. Please tell me what to do with them. When I'm frustrated, what could I do differently than yell at mom and lose all my stuff? Does that make sense? I don't have a problem with talking about things, but sometimes we've over-therapized our thing of or whatever that word would be, of honey, let's talk about it. Too much talk sometimes makes things worse. Look, all the men are absolutely it does. Did you hear that, honey? I saw a guy back there who's please don't talk. It's true, short and sweet. So we had a code word. So kids would get upset, and I'd say, sofa, and they had a job to do. I'd write down this phrase, motion changes emotion. We use motion or movement as a tool to help calm an upset child. Because in the moment, just saying, you need to calm down. Do you like it when someone tells you, you just need to calm down? You're like, really? You need to go to church, right? We don't, right? And so I like using some movement in the moment. I also don't like going total. You know what? We need to have a talk about your attitude right now, young man. When has that ever worked in the history? Of course, Dad, love to hear everything I've done wrong. It doesn't work. It escalates here's my dad's thing. Wipe that smirk off your face. And I was like, how do you wipe a smirk, Dad? It's not a smirk. I'm terrified of you, right? So I'm using some movement. So I'd say sofa, their job was to go into the living room, throw the cushions off the sofa, because I know they're not going to place them down nicely in the moment. Adjust some of your expectations, right? What did we get? We got an email today of mom, and I understand it's really hard, but she's like, my son's really sensitive. When the coach yells at him, he takes it personally. I was like, somebody's yelling at him. Of course you're going to take it personally. Or, here's a common one. My son sneaks his iPad into his bed at night. I'm like, okay, that's wrong, but is that really unexpected? If we had iPads as you were older, we didn't have anything cool to sneak on our bed. Right? No, it's too big back then. I'm not saying it's okay. I'm saying stop taking everything personally and think it's so well. My attitude is, of course, a 10-year-old boy wants to sneak an iPad into his bed. Why wouldn't he? He can watch 1 billion movies and inappropriate stuff. It makes sense to me. So I'm not going to freak out. I can't believe. It's like the thing of my child lies. Who doesn't? Everybody in here lies. You just put it in, well, that was a white lie. Why do you lie? Because you don't want the consequence. It's not usually an integrity issue. All I've known since I came out of the womb is I'm in trouble all the time. So of course I'm going to lie, right? It's not new. For those of you who are Christians, the first thing a human being did on earth. Hey, Adam, who ate from the tree? She made me do it. You know what the second thing was? A brother killed his own brother. My kids fight all the time. That's what they're supposed to do. It would be weird if your kids were just playing quietly together all day, every day. Then you know they're up to something bad. They're making meth in the basement or something, right? I'm kidding, but right? Does that make sense? It's like most of us older people grew up on Leave It to Beaver. It was a story of a kid who did dumb stuff every episode, and that was only true because it reflected what you and I did as kids. True? So don't get freaked out so much. I can't believe that my child did that. My teenage daughter talks back to me. Of course she does. I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying stop getting all worked up about it. So Anyway, sorry if that was a little bit too much. Where was I? You're the one taking notes. Code word. Okay, I got it. You don't have to talk too much. So, code word was enough. So they run in, they take the cushions off the sofa, throw them down, and then their job was to lie on the sofa. I would go in, put the cushions on top of them, and then sit down on top of the cushions. And it was immediately calming. 3 reasons. 1, it was weird. Right? Number 2, sensory pressure. It felt good. And number 3, this is for the men in there, no eye contact. I don't give kids eye contact when they're upset. And I say this for the benefit of the men. Every man who becomes a dad gets a little dad handbook, and it says this. Well, it says a couple things. It says, you will get offended at everything your child does and misinterpret it as disrespect. Is that not true? Men in here? Thank you for that. We think, he disrespected. I was like, what are you, an NFL wide receiver? Grow up. Like, come on. He's a 5-year. But that eye contact, when is the only time our kids tend to get eye contact? When they're trouble. You never come home from work, hey, look at me, you just made a good choice. I'm proud of you. Like, you don't say that, right? But I want you to, because it's really important for parents to affirm what their kids are doing well. And your words are very, very powerful in your home when you come in to say, hey, that was a good choice. Fist bump. Short and sweet. Guys, it can be as simple as this. Hey. I can just grunt. He's going to be like, Dad grunted at me, but he looked happy with me. Good enough. It's better than saying negative things all the time. So I encourage you to observe your kids. So let's talk about this. We talked about breaking generational patterns. The first part of this, and we will have plenty of time to get your kids, let's talk about us as adults. I'm going to do an abbreviated version of this. And if you let me be blunt, I'll just roll through this. 2 big principles. 1, who is the only person in life that you can control? Ourselves, right? But we struggle with our kids. You need to calm down. Right? And they're like, you can't calm down. Second principle, the quickest way to change your child's behavior is to first control your own. I'll show you in dozens of examples tonight how that works. Look, even body posture. See, if I walk up to you like this, I'm going to create a defensive response. If you see a mom standing like this, you know she's not telling her daughter, I'm so proud of you. Right? There's something that happens in that. You create responses in how you talk to your kids. So I'm going to roll through these pretty quickly. 4 things. I know this is a lot, but I'm trying to fit a lot in. 4 things I'd work on for yourself. 1, your control issues. I just encourage you to recognize that all of us in here have control issues. And I want you to have boundaries with your kids. I want you to have firm discipline. I promise I'll get to that. But watch and observe how many things in your home are just arbitrary. You want them to do it simply because that's the way I've always done it. That's my preference. That's what makes me comfortable. I don't like the way my son does stuff. I've got my own way. I'm 56. I know the most effective, efficient way to do things. If you just do it the way I would do it, it'd be so much easier. They don't want to do things the easy way. They're stove touchers. They want to try it themselves and figure it out. So I just encourage you, watch your own control issues. We could spend 30 minutes on that, but I'm not. Anxiety issues we talked about. From an early age, the child who can't sit in circle time, the middle schooler who does the bare minimum just to get by. If any of you have those, you're going to project out. And I encourage you to stop projecting your own anxiety over your child's future onto your child. That is not theirs to bear. That is your issue, right? And lecturing. Watch, you know what lecturing is? It's not teaching. Lecturing is filled with anxiety. And what you're really saying is, I don't really believe you're capable of doing this yourself without me being here, talking to you and showing you and being on you all the time. In a sense, so here's one of our phrases. When we step back as parents, it gives our kids space to step up and be responsible for themselves. When we step back from lecturing, micromanaging. Look, fixing everything. Because we fix stuff for our kids. Because we don't want them to be unhappy. Moms, it's too much of a load to bear. Well, my job is to make my kids happy. No, it's not. My job is not to make anybody else on this planet happy. Not my wife, not my kids, not my neighbors. My job is to serve them, to be merciful, to be compassionate. But I'm not responsible for my wife's happiness. I can't make her happy. If she hasn't figured out happiness by age 50, that's her issue. right? That's too much of a load to bear. Like, oh, my child's not happy. So I want to release some of this pressure of doing, if anything, today's parents do way too much and are way too responsible for our kids, and that's our anxiety. So just recognize that. Thirdly, body posture. This will be a quick example. It is really important. When I first started to learn how to calm down, because the first 10 years of Casey's life is all my control issues, my anxiety, and I was always trying to control him, fix him, until I finally learned I didn't even know how to control myself. One of the first things I started to do was sit when I got upset, because it changes something. It changes my tone when I sit. See, standing like this, I want to yell at someone, right? This is like pacing around the home. This is not calming. This is, I'm waiting for you to do something wrong so I can lay into you. When you sit down, especially if you put your feet up or you cross your legs, it changes your tone, it changes your perspective. And what you're communicating is, my yes is my yes, my no is my no. I'm not going to yell, I'm not going to scream, I'm not going to beg. I'm in complete control of myself. See, it's very grounding for kids. So I'll give you a weird one to try this week. Next time your kids are squabbling with each other or with you, try it one time. Just sit or lie down in the middle of the living room floor. Try it sometime. I guarantee you, you will take back control of that situation, not by controlling the child, but by controlling yourself. Quick example, sibling issue. Sibling issues come from one of two places. Strong-willed child feels like the bad kid, and you have the other child that's the golden child. That creates resentment. That's Cain and Abel all over again. So don't compare the kids. They're two different kids. You've got to watch that because they'll internalize it. If I feel like I'm the bad kid, and your kids will say this, nobody likes me, you'd be better, well, that's a husband thing. You'd just be better off without me, right? How many husbands in here? That's a very common because we're immature and need to grow up. You guys would just be better off without. I used to say that all the time, right? It's just immaturity because I didn't know what to do. So if you have a child who says that, just watch that, because who am I going to take things out on? Well, I'm not taking it out on my dad because he's going to crush me. So I'll just pick on my sister. The other place sibling issues come from is, I think it's the second column on that handout, brain stimulation. My brain needs to be stimulated. Many of your kids don't get enough dopamine or blood flow, and that's why they fidget and tap pencils. It's why they pick fights with you, procrastinate. All those things come from there. So I'm bored. What am I going to do? I'm going to poke my sister, or better yet, almost poke her without actually touching her, because that's even more irritating. Then what happens? Mom comes into the living room. You know what, guys? I buy you guys all these toys and all these video games. You can't even play well together for 20 minutes. You go to your room. You go to your room. And I didn't teach them a thing. Discipline means to teach. I just separated them. Why? Because I want them to shut up, because they're irritating. But I didn't teach them anything. Watch how this works. All he has to do is look at his sister. She starts whining. Mom gets upset, and then who gets upset? Dad gets upset. Dad gets upset because his wife is upset. We barely know what to do with you when everything's okay, but when you're upset, it freaks us out. So, one child, by looking at his sister, got 3 people to react. It's not right, but if I had that much power over everyone in my home, why would I not do that all day long? That's not their issue. That's everybody else's issue because you're a grown-up reacting to them. True? Okay. No blame, no guilt. Just own it. You're Texans, you can take this stuff. So imagine, though, they're squabbling. I walk into the living room and lie down in the middle of the room and floor and start reading, or I sit. I guarantee they're going to stop squabbling with each other because they're going to look at you like, what's Mom doing sitting in the middle of the floor? We've never actually seen her sit before, right? And now I get to take back control of the situation, not by controlling them, but by controlling myself. Now, here's a conversation I'd love you to have, for you to have with your kids so you can actually teach them. So, with my son, what's your name, by the way? Daniel? Daniel, here's what I know about you. You've got this awesome brain. Lots of ideas, busy brain running through you all the time. You're like a junior Thomas Edison, man. And I love that brain. But one of your biggest challenges in life is you don't like being bored. And so when you get bored, you've got to stimulate your brain, and what you do at home is you irritate your sister. Now, the problem with that is you're now dependent on your sister because you need her to react. for that to satisfy your brain. But the real issue is when you pick on your sister, you just lose all your stuff. So I know two other things about you. You've got a big heart, never toward me, but toward other people. Don't say that part. You can think the sarcasm, but don't say it. You've got a big heart, and you love money. How many of you have kids who love money? Not in a bad or greedy way. They're just born entrepreneurs. So I'm going to go get started on dinner. If you come and help me, I bet we could brainstorm 3 different ways for you to use that brain of yours to earn some money in the neighborhood. With that money, you give money to Ukrainian relief, or you could give it to kids with cancer. You can buy your own video games, and you can save and invest some. And it might even match some of that. So what have I done? I've just said, watch, instead of, you're a jerk who always irritates your sister, stop. I just taught him how his brain worked. You're not a jerk. You just need your brain stimulated. Here's the negative way for it to happen. But here's the positive way you can do that, meet that need. And it's using things you're good at, which is you're an entrepreneur. You don't like to be told what to do. So learning how to run a business might be a good idea because nobody's ever going to hire you because you don't like authority figures, right? Don't say all that, but you can think those things, right? But now I'm giving him a way to use that. And now I'm teaching him an alternative. Because just saying, leave your sister alone, when does that ever work? Got it the first time. Never happen again. Right? And then with my daughter, I can teach her, honey, I get it, your brother's irritating. Welcome to life. If all you're ever going to do is react to irritating people or situations, you're going to be miserable in life. Because everybody's irritated. It's just the way it works. But I could show you 3 different ways to respond to your brother in a different way so you don't give him all your power. See, now I've taught, and I've given them some insight. And if you want to write this down, I like giving kids wisdom and tools. My job as the parent is not to be the authority figure to boss them around. The good authority figures in my life give me wisdom and tools so I can make better choices. Does that make sense? So try the body posture. Just watch the body posture thing because it sets off negative responses in your kids. Sitting down is just an easy first step. Tone of voice, very, very important. You'll hear me model this the entire night. Even matter-of-fact tone, critical for the strong-willed child. I talk to strong-willed kids, whether they're age 2 or 22, like they're adults. I don't like, this is kind of where we start sometimes. Sweetie, baby, mommy needs your help. I'll tell you, strong-willed kids do not respect that tone. They hear it as condescending, and it sounds like weakness. I would not refer to myself as mommy or daddy when giving instructions to a strong-willed child. I know it sounds sweet, but they don't respect it. It sounds like bribery. Sweetie, baby, we're going to talk really sweet to you like this because you scare the crap out of us because every time we tell you to do something. So we think if we talk like a teenager in this kind of voice, it doesn't work with them, right? The pleading tone. Guys, after all I do for you, you know what? All I'm asking for is a little bit of help. You may as well just drink, right? And we don't recommend that. But it doesn't work because as soon as you go to, guys, all I'm asking for, Mom, here's what they know immediately. Mom, you're exhausted. You do way too much for everybody else, nothing for yourself, which is not a good example, right? Because you're sacrificing your own mental health, trying to make everybody happy. And watch what happens. In the course of doing that, you make everybody else unhappy and yourself unhappy. It's too much of a load to carry. So when the sweet thing doesn't work, then we go to, you better get your little butt in that car. That's Sunday morning voice. How many of you on the way to church scream at your kids every Sunday morning, right? Right before they come in, Pastor, you ought to have like a drive-through confessional for like who just, yeah, we're going to be late, and I've got control issues. How old are your kids? 6, 3, 1. This is good. This is good. This is going to change. Look, if you go down that path, it just ends in your wife's going to leave you. It doesn't work. No, seriously. No, she would. You know why? Because right now, here's what happens. And I applaud you because you're being honest with yourself. Most men are like, I don't have control issues. I don't have anger issues. I'm like, really? Clearly you don't. You just have denial issues, right? You're admitting it. But what happens sometimes in a home, and this is because I was just like that, was when I would come home, my wife would have to run around and make sure the Legos were picked up and everything was okay because I couldn't deal with a mess on the floor. Like if you marry an engineer, right? They need things to be just so. That's why they like working, because at work, at the office, you can tell people what to do. It's all structured. When I come in the house, there's Legos all over the floor and people have stuff all over their faces and my wife's got actual emotions. I don't know how to deal with that stuff. That's hard. And so wives oftentimes run around, and men sometimes do it for their wives, but usually it's a wife running around managing the kids' emotions and husband's emotions, and it's exhausting. And they will not sleep with you if you keep doing that. So I always tell men, if you want your wife to sleep with you more, which most men do, just learn how to control yourself. And if you de-escalate things with your kids, she will want you. But otherwise, she's too exhausted managing your emotions because you're 35 and can't control yourself. She doesn't have any room in her brain or energy to do anything, especially if you stay up till 11 o'clock on your central time zone, so you get good news at 10. But ESPN. But you roll into bed at 10:30. Hey, honey, are you in the mood? And she's like, yeah, to sleep like 3 hours ago. Chill, dude. So anyway, it's very real. So where was I? Tone of voice, thank you. So look, that's where the screaming, yelling doesn't work, because they're fight or flight, and because as soon as I become visibly irritated, what the child knows, if I just push your buttons a little bit, you're just going to blow. As soon as you're not in control of yourself, I'm in complete control. So watch, right in between sweetie baby screaming and yelling is this. It's me in control of myself. It's me as the calm, authoritative leader. Right? I use this analogy for men a lot. Men in every sphere of life respect other men who stay cool and calm under pressure. In the middle of a war, we don't want our platoon captain saying, oh my gosh, they're shooting at us. Nobody's following that guy. A good quarterback, good quarterback comes into the huddle. If he comes in, we're down by 2 touchdowns. You don't know what route to run. You keep fumbling the ball. Let's go score. Nobody's following that guy, right? Now, Tom Brady, cheater, I know, but he's got 7 Super Bowls. Even if he cheated for 4 of them, he still has 3 more than the Cowboys or whatever team you like, right, in the last decade or 2. So I'm kidding. I just like to push buttons a little bit because people get sensitive about their sports teams. But it's true. The reason he's so good is because at the end of the game, if the Patriots or the Tampa Bay, if they were behind, they knew this guy's going to lead us down the field. And think what a quarterback does. Comes in the huddle. Guys, we're down by 2 touchdowns. We're going to march down the field, execute our plays, score, get the ball back, score again, let's go. And his team follows him precisely because he's in control of himself. Does that make sense? It's a cool. So I actually like, for those of you who have toddlers, sometimes coming in the door at the end of the day, or some of you work from your home office, taking a knee with a 7, 3, and 1 or whatever, instead of coming in and being like, guys, there's a mess all over and that, it's just that creates chaos. You can get to that. So you come into the home and you say, guys, here's the deal. I heard that you made a good choice. I heard you doing it. Boom, boom, boom. Quick little fist bumps. Here's the deal. We've got a busy night. You and I, we're going to get started on dinner. Mom, daughter, why don't you do X? We meet back here in 17 minutes or whatever it is, 33 minutes. Now, they're a little bit young. But I'm leading, but I'm not creating chaos, if that makes sense. So I'll just leave it at that. Let me do one example on that with, say my 7-year-old is jumping on the sofa. I'm not coming in, hey, buddy, you know what? There's springs on the sofa. We don't jump on the sofa. You don't have to do the we thing unless you're jumping on the sofa. Okay, we got a little too egalitarian with that. So imagine I walk in control of myself and I say it sounds like this. Hey, jumping on the sofa? Not happening in my home. But I love your energy. Hey, if you want to come help me stir the soup, walk the dog, I could really use your help. So let's roll through it really quickly. I'm in control of myself. I like statements. I like, hey, jumping on the sofa, not in my house. That's a statement of fact. I'm not getting personal. How many times do I have to tell you, right? Because so much discipline becomes me against you. I'm just frustrated by you, so stop it. I'm just letting them know, this is how I roll in my home. There's no energy in discipline. I don't do all the drama in the discipline. Just to let you know, not going to work in my house, right? I'm taking draining the energy because they love the energy. And as soon as you start to do this voice, like your daughter's like, oh, mom's going for it. Let's bring it. Bring it, mom. And then she'll make it worse. So it's a statement of fact. That's not how I roll in my house. Now, here's where the energy goes. But I love your energy. Do I really love their energy? No, they're exhausting. But you're going to have to use that energy one way or another because you're not getting rid of it. It's there. It's not physical as much as it is mental and emotional energy that needs to be put into missions. We call it purposeful missions. So, hey, if you want to come help me stir the soup, walk the dog, I give them a place. Remember, whenever you say no to something inappropriate, jumping on the sofa, let me give them a couple options for what they can do. The obstacle course is an awesome thing for little kids. They love that, like treasure hunts. Everybody loves a treasure hunt. Find out, hey, a couple days after school, it could be instead of like, hey, you ready to do your homework? No. But if I start with a treasure hunt, or, hey, why don't you hide something and I have to find it? So kids love that too. So I'm mixing it up a little bit and kind of helping with the energy flow. So let's do this example. Let me do this example of de-escalating, and then I'll do a thing on ownership, which is really important. Let me do the ownership thing first, because I've mentioned it, haven't gotten to it. I promise you I will get to really tough discipline. I have no problem at all being like, not going to work in my home. When my son would talk back, you can talk to me like that if you want. So it's not going to end well for you. I'm not going to do a lot of drama over it. When you talk to me like that, you just lose your stuff. It's not working. But the last 43 times you've used that tone of voice with me, what it's told me is you're anxious, you're frustrated, or you're hungry. Those are my son's 3 triggers to this day. So now I'm giving him wisdom. I hear that tone, and rather than reacting to it, right, you can't talk to your father like that. You know what Casey said once? Just did. Any of you have those kind of kids? Your daughter. Because that was true. He just did. He could apparently talk to me like that, just not without a con. So, look, you can do, look, I didn't say like, hey, go to your room for the rest of your life. That's the only other. So I started to identify, look, it's a transition from me taking everything personally and thinking, oh, I've got to discipline you over every perceived thing you do wrong. Of course that's wrong for him to use tone with me. But what I know about life is when people use tone, just like your spouse, right? One of you does. It's because something else is going on. Honey, you know what? You need to be grateful. Oh, that's helpful. No, my wife's having a bad day. It doesn't sound like you. It sounds like you're overwhelmed, right? That's a lot nicer to hear than like, you need to get your stuff together, okay? So same thing with hey, Case, the last 43 times you've talked like that, what it's told me is anxious, frustrated, or hungry. So 2 options, son. You may continue to talk to me like that if you want, because he can, but it's not going to end well for you. Never does. You lose all your privileges, all the stuff that you like. But I've got another idea. If you want to get some chips, I'll get some salsa. I'll meet you out on the deck, and I'll help you with whatever you're struggling with. See, there's an invitation to problem solve. I love chips and salsa. We just ate at Rosario's down in San Antonio. That's really good salsa. So we had that today. Chips and salsa saved my relationship with my son. That's how we learned how to calm down. That was our code word now. Chips and salsa. I love chips and salsa. You never see 2 people eating chips and salsa yelling at each other. True? Throw in a couple margaritas, everybody's happy. Look, it changes the dynamic from, we need to have a talk about your attitude right now, young lady. Try that with your daughter. She'll be like, okay, and let's talk about your attitude, Mom. That's exactly what your daughter would say. And she'd be like, you're pretty much right. My attitude's worse than yours, honey. So it was an invitation, and we moved a little bit, and we came in a different place. Now I can say, what's going on? I'm curious. A good phrase. I'm curious. See, I'm curious because you're talking to me in a way that you know is disrespectful. You know it's wrong, and you know you're going to lose all your stuff, and yet you did it anyway. So I'm curious, what's going on that would lead you to do something that hurts you? See, my son talking disrespect, it doesn't hurt me, right? You're a terrible parent. Oh, my world's going to crumble. I'm not looking for validation from a 12-year-old or a 5-year-old, right? Don't take it so personally, right? You don't have to, there's no giving in there. You talk like that, it's not going to end well for you. But I don't think that's what you're after, right? I'm trying to go that extra step. The motion gives a little bit of space too. You go get that, I'll meet, and it gives me space. I want to throttle my child in the moment, right? That's a normal thing. You should want to throttle your child. That's normal. You should want that. Calm doesn't mean I'm Zen master and I don't feel things. That's what alcohol does. We don't want that. I'm frustrated, I'm irritated, I'm anxious, I'm scared. What's going to happen to you? You're 5, you can't even do preschool the right way. Of course you're going to feel it. See, I just normalized it. Of course you're going to feel that way. But I don't want you to act out of that because you'll end up, watch, our anxiety makes things worse. It gives us the exact thing that we don't want to happen happens. right? It's like with potty training. Honey, you need to poop. You need to poop. You need to poop. Are you ready to poop? If someone followed you around all day, you'd be stopped up. But we do it all the time. And sometimes when you relax and don't pay attention and give them space, they do it. But they won't do it in front of you. And here's why partially. Because I'm not saying with pooping, but with they won't do it the right way. See, they want to do stuff, but as soon as you're there, here's what a natural parent, honey, why don't we do it this way? Because that would be a much better way, and that would be much quicker, and that would be a better way, and you get a better grade on your paper, so why don't we do it that way? And they're like, I'm out. I was willing to try it as long as you weren't there micromanaging me. Because I want to try it, and I want to mess up. But I don't want someone watching me mess up. So it's very deep inside of me. So I own my own business now. I don't want to work for someone. Right? Parents are like, oh, my child doesn't like to be corrected. Who does? I love correction. I like when people point out my flaws every day. I wish someone would just criticize me hourly. That's why I don't read my Facebook posts. I don't want to hear people's comments on my Facebook posts because it bothers me. And I don't like negativity. So I do post on Facebook, but I probably will not answer you. If you email me, don't call me because I don't even answer my wife's phone calls. I don't like phone calls. But if you Casey, our son will answer. Call his number, and he will answer, and he is very, very polite to other people, just not us. I'm kidding. So let's do this example of ownership. So think about it this way. When you and I were kids, those of you who are a little bit older, like you look a bit old. How old are you? Awesome. I'm 63. So, I'm kidding, I'm not. I'm 56, but we're in that same age. When we grew up, we had a lot of ownership of our lives. We came home from school every day, 2:30, 3 o'clock, and we were gone for a couple hours playing. Summertime, parents didn't even see us. By the way, remember, when you came home after being gone literally all day, you just came home for dinner, your mom wasn't like, guys, what did you do? Did you have fun today? They didn't ask us. It wasn't that they didn't care. It's that they trusted us. Watch, this is important. I respect you enough to know that you figured out your day. If you were bored, that was your issue as kids. We figured it out. We did mischievous things, lots of them. Our kids are way better than we are in many ways. It's just that everybody sees what we do, kids do today. So watch, we had ownership. You and I made 10, 12, 15 different decisions each day, and there were no adults around. Your kids, from the time they wake up in the morning till the time to go to bed, an adult is telling them what to do and how to do it, the best way to do it. You sign your kids up for soccer practice when they're 3, when all they're going to do is stand around in a little thing and kick each other, not the ball. Because we think, well, if we get them early training, whereas you and I learned sports out in the backyard. There are no adults. We figured out the rules. We played a game. By the way, for the men who are like, my kids can't sit still for dinner like we did, that's because for 3 hours we were playing a game called Kill the Guy with a Ball. We literally pummeled each other for hours. So by the time we came in for dinner, we were exhausted and starving, and that's why we could sit. Your kids come in from playing video games and sitting at school all day. That's why they're fidgety partly. So it's generational, right? Things change a little bit. So think of ownership this way. I create a big box for my kids to live in, a big box. And I say this, guys, this is the box you get to live in conceptually. Don't put your children in a little box. I saw some people who are like, we're supposed to put them in a box? Conceptual box. I have very clear rules, very clear boundaries, very clear expectations. This is not permissive parenting. I'm very clear about what I want. Here's the difference. But within this big box, I will give you space to do things and do them differently than I would do them, as long as we accomplish the same objective. Does that make sense? I'm not saying if you want to do your homework. Oh, no, homework's getting done. By the way, your 5-year-old daughter should not be doing homework. So if she's getting in trouble, good. Sorry, it's dumb. Even at 6, I want her exploring. A good way to look at it is this. What is your goal for your child? What we ended up coming up with was we didn't want all A's. We wanted a curious child who loves to learn, because that can look a lot different. I know kids who can build a robot, but they won't do simple homework things, right? And they're learning a lot by building a robot or taking a toilet apart and not putting it back together, which many of them will do in your home. So Think about what you want. So I don't care how you do your homework. If you want to do homework in a weird way, we can make that little fort thing. If you want to stand at the kitchen counter where you can rock back and forth while you're listening to music and chewing on a snack, that's awesome for your brain, because chewing, music, rocking back and forth creates rhythm in the brain, helps your kids think better. Some of you do better work when it's quiet. That's how your brain works. But most of these kids do better work. I wrote a newsletter yesterday morning sitting in a hotel fitness room while other people were in there because our laundry was going in the other room. I was sitting on an exercise ball and used this other thing as a platform. I think better when there's stuff going on around. Even doing schoolwork for some of your kids out in public somewhere, outside. Mess around with it. Give them homework to do if any of you have kids who lie upside down off the sofa. Instead of getting upset, just walk in and say, bet you can't do your math homework upside down. And many of your kids will do it that way. It's just irritating. They're irritating how they do everything. Review vocabulary words while they're jumping on a trampoline, while you're playing catch. Mix it up a little bit. So let me give you a couple other ownership ones. I'm going to do this one, and you don't have to agree with it at all, but I'm just going to try to, I'm getting older, I'll try to save you some time and money and frustration. Most of your strong-willed kids will not do regular chores around your house, no matter what you threaten. How many of you struggle with that now? So here's an idea. Make the boundaries a little bit bigger. I know kids who will change the oil in the family car, but they're not going to unload the stupid dishwasher. This is what we came to with Casey. Casey was virtually useless as a kid. He was horrible. He was. Subjectively true. But outside the home, from the age of 12, he worked a job from the age of 12. He loved working outside the home. He was an ice hockey referee. Saturday, Sunday morning, he'd get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to be at the ice rink because I told him, if you want to make money, you take the jobs nobody else wants to do, and nobody else wants to do the 6:30 a.m. game at the cold ice hockey rink with little mini-mites who can't skate. So if you volunteer for that, you will get those games and you'll make $35 per game. So he worked. He was on time. He was everything that he was there. He wasn't at home. And so what we finally wrestled with was the goal of chores for us was to teach him how to be responsible and respectful. He was. We were teaching him to do that in the real world. He's just horrible at home. So expand that list. Doing something. How many of your kids would love to go down to some elderly couple's home down the street and do a service project for them and help them out? Why can't that be a chore? Again, it's up to you if you do that, but most of our kids won't. And the other thing is, if you have like 2 or 3 kids, the strong-willed child is never going to do as many chores as the other kids. He's going to pay the one sibling to do his chores for him and manipulate the other one. And your appropriate response is, Daniel, that's good thinking. Doing chores is boring. You've got that great entrepreneurial brain, so you make money. With that money, you pay your brother to do your chores. It's called delegating. It's what you're going to do when you have your own business one day. And because you're really good at manipulating people, which is because you have good insight into human nature, you manipulate your sister because you know that she's a people pleaser and she'll do anything. And so you manipulate her, and that's good thinking. Why would you do your chores if you could get other people to do them for you? Is that not true? The real issue is the daughter who's the people pleaser, because you got to deal with her so she doesn't grow up and marry a controlling man, which is what 40% of you in here did. Or if you're in the military, about 70%. So, no offense to the military people, but you're all control issues. You're just like my dad was and like I am. So, you have to be. If you're going to be in the military, you have to feel like you're in control. It makes sense. Any homeschooling parents in here? I knew you guys were. You just have that look. So, we're going to speak at a homeschool conference. That was not a bad thing. She was like, screw you. What do you mean we look like homeschooling parents? No, because you look like the best parents in the room. So, no, but you have to have some control issues in order to do those things, right? So, ownership. Here's one of my favorite ones. Let me do 2 more, and then we'll do disrespect thing, take a quick break. So, 2 daughters. So you're going to be the mean one who says something mean to her sister. Typical parenting response, nothing wrong with this. Young lady, you need to apologize to your sister right now. And when you demand it like that, you will always get no. If you don't apologize right now, I'm going to take away everything you own. And here's what you're going to get. Fine. Sorry, stupid sister, right? And then how many are going to be like, pretty close to an apology? I think I'll take it. So this is not meant to be funny. It's true. You're going to have to grade on a curve with a strong-willed child. The stuff that they do is not going to look like it does for the other kids. So here's ownership. There's some space in here. Hey, honey, I know that when you're ready, you know the right thing. And then I walk away and drink because you're going to feel like it. Don't drink, but watch this phrase. Hey, honey, I know that when you're ready, you know the right thing to do. Short and sweet. I'm not lecturing about how important it is to apologize, and it's an integrity issue and all those things. Those things are just icky, right? I know you know the right thing to do. You know why? Because I've modeled it for you like 100 times in your home. When I do something wrong, I apologize. That phrase, when you're ready, really important. Now, never use it like this. Hey, son, when you're ready, get your shoes on. We need to go. Never going to happen. But in an emotional situation, a power struggle situation, see if this makes sense. If you go up and demand something from a strong-willed child right now, automatically get a no. When you're ready, gives them some measure of ownership and control there. Because it's not like saying you have to do it now is going to work. Hey, when you're ready, because now it's her choice. Now, here's the hard part. You're going to be lying in bed tonight. She still hasn't apologized. You're going to be talking to your spouse like, are we raising a sociopath? Why can't she just apologize? Partly because you want it too badly. But tomorrow morning, she will get up and do something thoughtful for her sister as an act of contrition. And your appropriate response is, nice job, honey. Shows me you're growing up. I like short praise, by the way, for strong-willed kids. Don't make a big deal out of it. Oh, honey, you did such a good job. You know what it sounds like? We never thought you'd actually make a good choice, and you did, so we're going to throw a party. It creates too much pressure because what they start to think is, now you're going to expect me to do that all the time. Short, sweet, like you're sowing little seeds. Hey, good job. I saw you do that. Shows me. With your daughter, don't make a big deal. Just short and sweet. I saw how you handled that. Shows me you're growing up. See that and walk away. Don't stand there because that's awkward. You're a good mom too, right? Like it's just weird. So you don't need the reply. So here's the hard part. She probably will never use that phrase, I'm sorry. And it's because you want it too badly. And it's just an arbitrary thing. What I wanted was for her heart to change. She showed me contrition. She doesn't have to use those words. True? I like the words, but the more you want them, she's not going to say them, right? I'm kind of apologizing, right? It's like your kids who are like, you cannot put your foot on, and they will just keep it right there. And then they'll tap it with their heel because that's not really their foot, right? And the more you make it a big deal, the more it goes. So here's my favorite one. And I'll come back and do some morning routine stuff later so we can do the tough discipline with it. So morning routine. Let's say, and this is ownership. Let's say your child, you leave the house in the carpool or the school bus comes at 7:21 a.m. I talk to my son and say, Daniel, here's the deal. I have one goal for you every morning. Be on that school bus in that carpool, 7:21. I don't care what you look like. I don't care what you smell like. I don't care what's in your stomach. Be in that bus at 7:21. If you're smart enough to wear the clothes to bed that you're going to wear to school the next day, brilliant. You can sleep until 7:19, roll out of bed, grab a Pop-Tart from under your bed because I know you hoard food up there. You can run out to the bus. You don't even have to have your shoes on. You could leave your shoes on the bus the night before. I don't care. I just want you on the bus at 7:21. And if he makes the bus at 7:21, here's your response. Nice job making the bus, my friend. Now, here's what you're thinking inside. I hate till he gets up. I want him up early. I want him to get some exercise. I want him to eat blueberries and avocados so he's got some good healthy fat so his brain's ready to learn. I want him to look nice. I want all those things, control freak dad. I want that. I want it. But how many of you have found the more you want it, the more they resist? And I give them some ownership, right? Now, you don't struggle with this a whole lot, but if any of you in colder climates, here's what happens every morning in the winter. Strong-willed child comes down in shorts. Mom's like, well, you have to wear a jacket to school. And then she lies to your child, right? Or you're going to catch a cold. You don't catch a cold from cold weather. It's from germs. You just lied because you're embarrassed, because you don't want to look like the bad mom, because you sent your child to school when it's occasionally cold in San Antonio, and your child is in a T-shirt and shorts. They're not going to die in San Antonio. If they get cold at the bus stop, they'll steal another child's jacket, okay? And then it's called being resourceful, my friend. Well done, right? Just like they're not going to give in with food. Do I want my child to eat healthy? Of course. But how many times have they ever said, Mom, I didn't realize what I was putting in my body was so unhealthy. But after you lectured me for 20 minutes and showed me the food pyramid, which is all wrong anyway, all of a sudden I'm motivated. They're not. You model it. Model these things. They will come back to it, just not in your timing. Casey was horribly messy as a kid. He owns his own home now out west. I just visited a couple months ago. Guess what you do when you walk into my son's room? You have to take off your shoes because he's spotless. Jerk. When he was a kid, he was not like that. But now he expects me to be like that. So I'm intentionally messy in his home because I'm resentful. I'm kidding. But they change. He eats healthy. Look, he's a tall, lean kid. For the guys out there, here's another one. We have this, it's try to save some time and money. Your kids, strong-willed kids, are not going to practice their musical instrument, and they're not going to practice at sports. But if they practice, they could be so good. They're not going to do it. They're not. And no amount of you rolling down like, I was a good athlete when I was a kid. If it's not who they are, it's not who they are. Don't spend a lot of money on travel sports or musical instruments wanting some Russian lady to teach them or German lady to teach them how to practice piano. They're not doing it. How many of you have found that before? Casey, you know what's interesting? Casey played ice hockey as a kid. He wasn't very good. And I was super competitive as a kid. And I remember when this hit me, I was in Ashburn, Virginia, south end of the ice rink. Kid skated by Casey and scored a goal. My son went up, hit him with a stick, tapped him with a stick on the butt and said, good goal. And I was like, you don't say good goal. You freaking put his head through the glass next time. I was in the stands giving him numbers, like number 5, and I would do this. Because in hockey, you hit people. And I was like, you hit him hard. Because Casey was a big kid. And that's when I realized, that's not who my son is. It's not who he ever is. But you know what's funny now? So I was always like, he's lazy. He doesn't apply himself. You know what he does out west? He does that ski mountaineering, where he goes up mountains on his skis. He hikes up on his skis so he can get to places and then skis down. That is extremely rigorous. And what I noticed, I was out visiting him, and he's trying to teach me to ski, which is not fun when you're 56, to learn how. He was really patient with me, more patient than I was when he was a kid. And it's interesting to me is he has chosen different areas that he's really good at doing things, and they're none of my areas. And I don't know if, I'm sure that's not conscious, but it's in there, because he would have never measured up to doing, if he had played basketball sports that I play, he'd never measure up. He'd never be good enough. So he chose his own. Does that make sense? It's just instructive how these things kind of work through. And so I say this to the dads out there, because dads get very impatient with their kids. How's he ever going to be successful? They will be. They will watch you, how you do things. But take the next 2 weeks and simply affirm what you see. Here's a good one, video games. Most of your kids, when they play video games, are actually demonstrating the very qualities they need to be successful in life. This will mess with your head. They are goal-oriented. They are disciplined, right? And I forget the other one. But watch. They have a goal. Get to the next level. Win that video game. They don't stop till persistent. They don't stop till they get there. They're goal-oriented. They're motivated, right? They do all those things, just nothing. They just don't use those skills in anything you want them to do. But if you will look for it, you will find it in different areas. And I'd rather you right now affirm for where you see that. Of like, how many of you ever walk by your child's room and they're playing video games and you hear a different kid? Like you hear a kid who's like confident, who's the leader, a little bit bossy, but they're the ones who, and you're like, that's a take charge kid. So if you want, we can do screens a little bit later. I just encourage you with screens. This is a larger thing. Remember we talked about if you take something away, you have to replace it with something? Begin to think about what your kids get out of screens. Screens for many of your kids are order and structure. Every time they play, the rules are the same, consequences are the same. There's not a mom video game and a dad video game. They know exactly what to expect. It's very stimulating for the brain. It's immediate feedback, and they get their goals met. It's very concrete for them. I won or I lost. I got to that next level, right? It feeds a lot of things. There's a social skills aspect of it, because many of your kids struggle with social skills. But on video games, and they're playing online, now they connect with their friends that way. Not the way I want them to, but they're still meeting that need. And then here's the two that we miss: competence and confidence. Many of your strong-willed kids are not that competent at school. Smart, they don't get all A's, but when they play video games, oh, they're really good. Where does confidence come from in life? It's from being good at something. I'm not good in all those areas, but I'm good at helping that lady down the street. I'm good at running my little business. I'm good at bossing people around at the church in the parking lot, right? I'm 5 and I'm one of the ushers, right? I'm running the sound. I'm running the thing. I'm good at that, and that's why you have to feed those things. And I'm good when I play my video games. So why doesn't it make sense that a child would do something that met 5, 6, 7 different needs? So just to come in and say, you need to stop doing that because it's going to rot your brain, we've got to replace that with something, right? And that's part of why Casey started reffing hockey games. He started to learn how to fly airplanes. I got him off video games because I said, I don't really want you doing this, but I need to know why are you doing this and how can we meet the needs in different ways. And he said, I want to fly airplanes. I was like, great, I have a fear of flying in airplanes, which I do. So again, he chooses the exact opposite. So it's $50 a lesson. And I said, if you stop playing travel hockey, because you're not very good anyway, and you start reffing games and making money, I'll pay for half. So watch, when you flew an airplane, the first day he went up, he got to control the thing and help take off. That's stimulating for your brain, because you can die. And then he started making money, making a lot of money reffing hockey games. So guess what became less appealing? Call of Duty 2, because he was doing other things. Human connection, serving other people, service projects. That will get your kids off video games to a degree, because now they see what it feels like. I go to that old people's home, that retirement home, and I do things. I sing for them, I draw with them, I do these things, I help these little kids, or I go to this animal shelter, and that makes them feel alive. Well, now I don't feel such a need to do all this. Does that make sense? You also have the right to say, nope, just can't do it, right? I'm just taking them away. But we can go over a little bit more of that later. So this ownership idea of I'm going to give you some space to do it is really, really powerful. Question for you. How are you guys doing on time? Do you want to take a little break, or can I do one more story? Do you want a break? You good? Okay, let's do it this way. If you want to take a break, you're grown adults, go take a break and use the restroom. But I believe that you're capable of sitting for this last story. So one of the biggest triggers for me, and this will tie together just about everything, and then we'll take a very short break, and then we'll do other stuff. One of my biggest triggers was when I would walk into the room, and I would hear Casey yelling at my wife. So typically what happened, hey, Casey, how many times have I told you don't yell at your mother? You keep that up, you're going to lose everything you own. You know what, you never pick up, and he'll get on about leaving his Legos on the floor, and you never do this right. Watch this little thing that happens. Our kids, strong-willed kids, ruin our agendas as parents. Okay, especially moms in here. You've got an agenda, like I'm going to raise these kids to be responsible, respectful. They're going to love Jesus. They're going to grow up and be responsible. Strong-willed child is just going to ruin that agenda. You're just going to be frustrated. And so it's normal if you feel a little bit resentful because they make everything difficult and they take all the energy in the home. So I had this subtle thing that happened whereby I kind of wanted Casey to do bad things so that I felt justified laying into him for all the stuff I didn't like about him. Does that make sense? Look, I always tell guys, you're justified. You're justified in yelling at your kids. You're justified. But it doesn't work, and it doesn't build the relationship, right? I'm justified doing a lot of things, but it doesn't work. Look, if yelling and screaming and demeaning your kids worked, I'd write a book, like 10 different ways to yell at your kids and build a closer relationship while they listen. But it just doesn't work, especially a strong-willed child. I'll give you a warning with a strong-willed child. They will internalize stuff. If it's always negative, there's this little thing that builds in them where they're like, you just wait till I'm a teenager. Just wait. Because you know what? You've always communicated that I'm a loser and I can't please you, so guess what? I'm just going to be a loser. I'm going to stop doing my schoolwork. I'm going to hang out with all the kids I shouldn't hang out with. And you know what it is? It's a big F you. Because that's the only way they can do it without getting in trouble. Does that make sense? Again, not meant to be offensive, but it's helpful to hear some of that stuff down in there. So I would lay into him, and I do all the things of like, one more word, young man. And one time he said, word. Right, we do the ones, keep it up. You already lost your video games for 1 week. You want to make it 2? Strong-willed tells you, let's just make it 4. Because they know you need them to play video games. Because what else are you going to do with them all the time? So I would get upset, send him to his room. He'd slam the door. I get furious. You don't have to respect me, but you're going to respect my door, right? How many of you do that one? So I'd walk back downstairs feeling justified because he was so bad. And watch this subtle thing that was happening. You know what I was really saying to my son? No guilt, no blame. I want things to sting a little bit so that we change. What I was really saying is this. I need you to behave, because if you don't behave and do exactly what I say, I'm not sure I can behave. You do not want to see me angry. That's what my dad basically was telling me, right? So I want to flip that around. So here's a different way to do it. We already mentioned motion changes emotion. Before I discipline, I want to de-escalate situations. It just doesn't work to go right for discipline in the moment. Everybody's frustrated and upset, and it always escalates. So, by the way, in case I forget, you could be mom or dad in a kitchen with 3 or 4 different kids. You can't just go out and play football or catch with them. But what you could say is, oh, man, if I were you, I'd be frustrated too. Hey, could you go to the pantry, get the spaghetti sauce? Could you get that top open for me? I'm giving them something they're in control of. So when I come in the room, I may say this. Hey, Daniel, I can tell you're frustrated. I like giving kids intensity when they're upset. You know what's really irritating when someone's upset? Oh, honey, it's okay. No, it's not. It's like a child who made a paper airplane and threw it. And then if it doesn't fly the right way, for many of your kids, what are you going to get? Stupid airplane, I'm stupid. Oh, honey, that was a good airplane. No, it freaking wasn't. It would be better to say, if I were you, I'd be frustrated too. Spend a lot of time trying to make that airplane. It didn't fly right. I get frustrated when things don't work out. See, that's validating. What I didn't say was, if I were you, I'd punch a hole in the wall and go hit your sister. I didn't say that. I just said, if I were you, frustration is normal. What do we do with the frustration? Totally different. See, I can help you with that. But that frustration, throwing an airplane and it didn't work, of course, right? So when I walk in, hey, Daniel, I can tell you're frustrated. Listen, I've got a football. When you're ready, if you want to come outside and play catch, love to play catch. Hey, Daniel, I can tell you're frustrated. Listen, I'm going to dump the Legos out. When you're ready, if you want to come in, I'll build a really cool spaceship with you. I like giving them something to do with their hands. That's calming. See, I don't know how to calm down, but I do know how to build with Legos. I do know how to draw. Coloring sometimes is a really helpful. Mom and a teenage daughter starting to get into it, sit down and just start coloring. And then just hold a crayon up, even with your 5-year-old. She likes painting, see, so that you use what she's good at. See, is almost impossible to scream at someone while you're coloring, unless you're gripping it like this. It changes your response, and it's an invitation. For those of you who are Christians, I mean, picture the woman caught in adultery. What did Jesus do? It was really interesting. He knelt down in the dirt, and he started drawing in the dirt. And I think what he was doing partly was he wasn't looking her in the eyes. He knew she was ashamed. She was out there basically naked in front of everybody. He didn't have to look at her and say, proud of yourself? Right? That's what we do. What were you thinking? He averted his eyes because she's filled with shame. And many of you have kids, strong-willed kids, who have a lot of shame inside. That's why they lie. That's why they make up these stories, because they can't deal with the shame because they're always in trouble and they need tools to do it differently. So when I do that, and I'll wrap this up this way. So I'm inviting him out. I'm going to go play catch. I'm going to go get on the floor. I'm sitting on the floor. He comes in and he starts building with me. I'm not looking him in the eyes. We're just building together. But here's what's cool. I'm now with my child. Instead of go to your room. See, when I send him to his room, it's okay. That's an okay thing to do. But I'm sending my child away from the very person who has the wisdom and tools to help him. And the message, instead of I need you to behave, the message I want to send is, when your world is out of control, mine's not. See, I can handle you at your worst. And I want to start that young. That's what's beautiful about you guys, so that when your kids are teenagers and they struggle with stuff, which they will, they come to you. Because if you're just going to be standing there like this, really, that's what you did this weekend? They're never going to come to you. But I want them to be able to come. We had a code word in our home, besides chips and salsa. For many of our kids, it was football. My son Casey would come and say, Dad, do you want to play catch? That was his way, because no teenage boy is going to come in and say, I'm really struggling with some things. come bare my soul to you? Like, this is awkward. But Dad, do you want to play catch? Or he drank coffee from a young age. So with his mom, it was, hey, Mom, it's Dunkin' Donuts Day. They didn't always go, but it meant they were going to sit. That meant I need to. See, give your kids easier ways to do those. Reduce the friction in the apology, right? I'm just waiting for you to apologize. It's not going to happen. My humility will lead you to actually apologize. Me standing here like this, I'm not going to apologize. Screw you. But when I humble myself and I make it easy, then I get that. So let's do this. It's 7:59. We've got 30 minutes. At the very least, stand up. I do have a quick announcement to make, and this is so. Look, we've got 13 on your handout. It's there. It's on there. I'm not going to go through them all. We have 13 audio programs. You can get them as CDs to play in that car that doesn't have a CD player, but some of you have that, so use it for that. But they come as this, and you get it as downloads. When you get these, you get an app, and you can listen right on your app. It's 13 programs. They're in your handout. Everything from discipline to motivating kids, learning how to control yourself. There's a program just for dads. There's one for moms. There's one for your kids, for little kids, a school one, ADHD one. Here's the deal with the CDs. They're expensive. If you go on our website, they're typically $99 each. These things only cost me $1.24 to produce, and that's with inflation. My profit margins are enormous on this. The reason I make our stuff expensive is twofold. One is self-respect, because our stuff is really good. It'll change your family. I want you to respect it. And the second is ownership. I know when people invest in something, they tend to work at it. Right? In the beginning, I was like, I have a big heart. I want to change people's lives. And then we made it really cheap, and everybody bought stuff, and nobody listened to it. When we raised prices, guys were like, we paid money for that. Maybe we should do it. So here, every night, we do a different price depending where we are. So that's why Casey came up. And I can always tell when he likes a crowd. Like in New Jersey, we sell at full price. Like they're like $4.97. That's what you're going to pay, because they flip us off when we're driving on their highways. So we don't get here that much. I get paid fees to be placed. So here's, he wrote down, get all 13 programs, $99. So it's a good price. It's 30-some hours worth. For me, it's less than one trip to a therapist's office, and you get everything we've kind of put together. It is. I mean, it'll save you. It's better than therapy. If you're interested, you can scan the QR code, because we're cool like that now. And I don't even know how to do it. I have to with the menus. We did that at Rosario's. It's very good. But $99. If you need help, ask Casey out there. You get the instant download instantly. And if you want to, you can pick up the physical CDs on your way out. And if you need help financially or otherwise, just ask Casey. He'll help you out. What I'd like to do is take maybe a 5.5, 6-minute break, maybe 4.5 minutes, at least to stand up, because that'll get us through the next 30 minutes. Everybody good so far? Okay. So stand up, use the restroom. I'm going to stay here if anybody wants to ask questions. I'll use the time. When we get back, I promise I'll do some tough discipline, some defiance, and giving kids tools for school. Yes?
I have to bug you.
Okay.
I've been listening to you for a very long time.
I thought you looked familiar. Have you ever been to one of our
No,
things? Okay.
but I bought your stuff years
Okay.
ago. I have 3 boys, 2 ADHD. When I'm de-escalating, like, hey, be on the bus at 7:21,
Okay.
and he doesn't do it,
Okay.
because he won't.
How old is he?
This one is 11, he's 12. He'll be 12 in a week.
Okay.
And he just won't do it. So he'd miss
Why?
every day.
Is it anxiety? Does he have anxiety
No.
going to school?
No,
Why doesn't he want to go? Does he just not like
no,
it?
typically he will.
I'm going to put you in charge.
Okay.
You take that around. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, 'cause I like being in charge of things.
Yeah, I have control issues as well. So let me do a couple defiance and disrespect things. I did the one with my son of like, hey, I hear that tone in your voice. Let's do a mother. Yes.
Just make sure that everyone got something to put in there.
Yeah, if you need, hold that, and then we'll go get some of those forms.
I relinquished it.
Thank you. Okay. So let's do this example. Say it's a teenage girl and her mom. I like this example. It's a little bit wordy, but I like the principles in it. So you'll use this in a few years with your daughter. So, excuse me, your daughter is, what's your daughter's name? Do you mind? What is it?
Viva.
I'm going to say it wrong. I'm going to say it Viva.
Say Vida.
Vida. So Vida, my daughter is, and I'm going to be the mom, is talking back to me rolling eyes. So here's the conversation and the principles behind it. Honey, I don't need you to respect me. So you have something called self-respect. So there's a couple good principles. I can't always tell you what you're going to do. Oh, but I can always tell you what I'm going to do. See, I can't demand that someone else respects me. I can't demand respect, right? If I have to demand it, I don't have it. What I can demonstrate is self-respect. So let me give you a couple of discipline, kind of defiance ones. Guys, every day I ask you to do 3 chores around the house. In return for that, I run 3 services: a meal service, a taxi service, a laundry service. You get your 3 chores done, I feed you, take you places. Seriously, you're not going to take us places if you don't? Try me. When I do discipline, I don't create a lot of drama. I don't use a lot of words. And if you want shorthand for good discipline is, I simply do what I told you I was going to do. There's no drama, there's no shame. I'm not taking it personally. I'm not mad at you. I'm just letting you know. This is just how I roll. Because eventually kids know. See, when you talk a lot, they draw you into the arguments. And then you start saying all kinds of extraneous stuff that just doesn't matter. So I'll come back to that. But, honey, you may continue. I don't need you to respect me. I have self-respect. If you think you're going to roll your eyes and talk back to me, and then I'm going to go out of my home into my car in the evening and drive you across town through traffic to some extracurricular activity that I paid way too much money for that you're not even good at, leave that part out. But if you think it's just not going to happen because I have too much self-respect. Right? It's like I don't let people speak to me like that, and then I turn around and grovel to them. It's just not how I roll. The reason I want you to respect me is because it's good for you. The reason I wanted the big tall kid out there to respect me, I didn't need his respect. You're a terrible father. Oh, I don't need it. I just know things go better for kids when they respect their parents. And by the way, it's not that they're just respecting us. When they respect us, they receive our wisdom, which is what every guy, especially guys, that's why guys are so into the disrespect. We want our kids to respect us so they learn the lessons that many of us didn't learn because we don't want them to repeat the same mistakes, right? That's part of your good control issue is you love your kids and you want the best for them. That's why you have that, but it just backfires. So I don't need you. I want you to respect me because it's good for you, because here's what I know. You're 13. You're going to want a lot of freedom in your teen years, to do sleepovers, to get your driver's license. And I want you to have that freedom. But every time you talk back, every time you roll your eyes at me, what it tells me is you're not mature enough to handle that freedom. And see, that makes me sad for you. See, I'm almost advocating for you. You can be disrespectful if you want. It's just not going to end well, right? Instead of taking it personally, I'm coming and I'm beside you, right? That previous example, what I didn't get to because I was running out of time, was when my son came out to me and we ended up playing catch right after he was yelling at his mother. The phrase, once we calmed down or we were building with Legos, the conversation was, Casey, look, I know that you know your mother. I know you know that's wrong. I also know when you know that when you do that, you have dire consequences. So I'm curious, what was going on that would lead you to do that? See, typical discipline kind of becomes me against you. So frustrated, stop doing that. I want to come alongside and say, look, you're doing things that are hurting you. This is not hurting me. It's hurting you. So I'm curious what's going on. So oftentimes with Casey, it's like, Dad, I'm just frustrated because school was really hard and I come home and Mom wants to do and I was like, okay, so you're frustrated. Let me show you how to deal with your frustration. right? And I like physical stuff like that. That's where I like that that obstacle course thing, things for your kids to climb and to pull on. I love the example of, you're in aisle 3 at Target, and you've got a little kid, and he's freaking out on the floor, and just saying, you need to get your little butt up off the floor. If you picture Dad getting down on the floor and start doing push-ups in aisle 3, the kid's going to stop melting down, because he's like, why is my dad doing push-ups in aisle 3? And I get to look up and say, Daniel, you want to do 10 with me? Because if you did 10 push-ups every time you got upset, you'd be ripped, right? But I'm modeling for him, right? That's why I often loved, and I don't mean this to be like a specific gender thing. It's a little bit old school. I get it. But I like the example, because I do a lot of work just with dads, is Dad comes home from work one night, and instead of getting upset because Legos all over the floor and starting to get upset, Dad says, guys, come here. Listen, I had a bad day at work. Boss was all over me. Traffic's bad. Frustrated. You guys do some push-ups with me? And here's what kids start to learn. When my dad gets frustrated, he does push-ups. Because they want to do what their dad does. If Dad flips people off going out of the church parking lot, your kids are going to flip, you know what I mean. So I like doing physical things with kids when they're upset. But anyway, so with my teenage daughter, you can talk to me like that. It's just not going to end well for you. So what I sense is you're frustrated. You don't like my decision. So if you come grab me later, because I'm not going to talk to you right now, because I'm too upset, you're too upset. If you come grab me, we'll go for a walk. I love going for walks. I love this one, Calm Down It, teenager or 10-year-old. Hey, I'm running up to the convenience store. I got to grab something. You want to come with me? We can grab a Slurpee. I don't want kids drinking Slurpees. It's awful for them. But driving in a car is a great place to have a talk, because there's no eye contact. You're just staring forward, and there's not all that pressure. Spouses, honey, we need to sit down. We need to talk about our relationship. No, we don't. I'll set the house on fire to get out of that one. True? All the men are like, pretty much. But if we go for a walk, and we're walking a dog, now I can hear it. And I don't have to look you in the eyes and register your disappointment that you've been asking me about this for 13 years and I'm still doing it wrong, right? And it just makes it easier to hear, just like it does with a child. It's easier to hear when we're walking down the street rather than we need to have a talk about your attitude. Does that make sense? Quick video game thing. I'm just going to roll and then I'm going to do this tools thing. Guys, I'm going to give you 27 minutes to play your video games tonight. 27 minutes, interesting time limit. Here's how it works. From now on, you control your video games. You prove to me you can control yourself, you get to do it. So, after 27 minutes, you guys set your own timer. When I come back in the room, that screen's going to be off. Because here's what we usually do. Guys, 5 minutes left, 3 minutes. Okay, time's up. Hold on, I need to save it. We need to get to the next level. Right? All that drama. I don't want any more of that drama. Just letting you know. You set the timer, set on your iPhone. I got you one way too early. Apologize for that. I gave in to peer pressure, gave you an iPhone. Now you're addicted to it. That's my issue. Right? By the way, if you ever need to, I'm not recommending this. If you have a teenager or child, you gave them an iPhone or Android, and they're kind of addicted to it and it's changing their moods, do this on a weekend, not on a school night, because it's going to be World War III. Guys, I need to apologize to you. I put something in your hand that's changed you. We fight all the time. Your attitude's different. My attitude is different. I put something in your hand that you can't control. And I partially know that because I can barely control it. I apologize for that. I don't like our relationship right now. So, as of Saturday night, 11 o'clock, whatever time, I'm taking it away. I'm going to take it for a month or 3 months. If I were you, I'd be furious at me. I expect you to be really upset. I expect you to not want to talk to me for a long time, and I'm okay with that. But what I know inside is, and you don't have to say this to the child, you could, is my job is to always do what is right for you, even if it's inconvenient or hard for me. I'm not blaming you for that. I'm saying that's a more honest. I just wanted to prove that they could control. Kids can't control their screens. They can't. I know very few who can, because I have a hard time. We're driving today on the, how many of you drive on the highway and sometimes you're looking at your messages? Don't lie, I see you, because I've done it too, because I drive a lot. If I can't control, So it's an honest statement of, I put something in your hands that's addictive, that's changed your personality. I will tell you from our experience, and you don't have to do this, it's an option. If you can get through about 10 days, it's like detox. They revert back to being the people they were. And I'll tell you, that I will encourage you with this, if you ever want to do this, they will eventually thank you for doing it. Not in the moment, they're going to hate you. And they're going to basically burn the house down because they're angry. But they will thank you eventually because they know that they're controlled by it. They know that they end up getting sucked into 3 hours of TikTok videos that waste their afternoon, right? Now, I'll throw out one more thing for those of you with older kids. Part of the reason they're so addicted to this is because that's how they get their social connection. So acknowledge that part. Because you're going to run into this. All the other parents let their kids stay on their phones till midnight. And then you're a responsible parent. Every night at 10 o'clock, you have to put it on the kitchen counter. But Mom, don't dismiss that. It's a real thing. You know what? Of course you feel left out. Because you got to turn in your phone at 10, and all your friends are texting for 2 more hours till midnight. So you walk into school and you feel left out. If I were you, I'd feel left out too. See, that's being honest with them. Oh, it's not important. Of course it's important. They're missing out on the whole social thing. But that doesn't mean you give in and say, well, here, just have it all night long. Then you have to figure out different ways for them to get social connection, right? And that's why we always try to make our home the fun place. I let kids come over on Friday night, was video game night at our house. Why? Because I don't trust other parents. I didn't want my son at other people's houses. They're terrible parents. I work with them all the time. I'm kidding. No, but I want him at my house. And so what I'd introduce, and get offended or not, but some nights, these were all boys, I'd come in and say, you guys like airsoft guns? You guys want to play war games outside? So I've got an old 4Runner. We'll put 3 of you in the 4Runner. The other one's in the cul-de-sac. We'll come screaming into the cul-de-sac. And then you guys shoot out of the windows and you guys shoot at us. You guys want to do it? Wait, we can do that? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty cool. You got to wear your eye gear, whatever. Don't shoot out my tires. So that was one way to get them off video games because that was a lot more fun. And then I'd say, ice rink. Look, guys, there's an ice rink over there. It's open skate night tonight. There are girls there. Now, you guys are socially awkward, so you don't even have a shot, but it's good to dream. So you don't say that. But they dreamt, and they came home empty-handed like most men do, getting ready for life. But I gave them, but I was teaching, we were doing other things. You know, one thing for screens, you know why I don't do screens a lot? And I hope you don't get offended. Most parents aren't willing to do what it takes to actually get rid of the screens because it's hard. You know what you have to do? You have to go outside with your kids. Because our parents were like, go outside and play. We knew what to do. We also were allowed to play Ding Dong Ditch. You can't now because Ring Doorbell blew that one, right? You can't. You and I knew exactly what to do. We just shot bottle rockets at our neighbor's house. We threw eggs. We had mischief night the night before Halloween. You soap people's windows. We went out and did lots. We knew how to play. Your kids don't either. They're like, what do we do out here? And so you have to get out there, but that means you have to, but you have to get off your butt when you're really tired and go out and show them how fun it is. But once you do it and they're out in the woods or a strip of trees in your neighborhood and they're falling and they're hiding things and they're doing stuff, you just have to lead with that. And they're going to complain, of course. Hey, guys, we're going to go outside. Ugh, it's hot out. My legs are tired. Don't argue and convince them. Guys, it's really good for you and your development. They don't care. Just go. Just go and lead them and do stuff. And eventually, they will follow. But of course they're going to, right? If I could sit inside and watch Netflix if I could sit and watch Netflix all day and not work, I would, right? Who wants to go to the gym? You guys don't, I can tell. Right? I'm just kidding. It's true. Is that not? I'm kidding. I do that because you get on your kids all the time. Like, oh, here's the common one. My son gives up when things get hard. Who doesn't? Tony Robbins is a freak. Maybe he likes challenge every day. But most of us want our day to be easy. I don't like it facing adversity. So normalize that. Right? Anyway, I didn't mean to offend you, but it is fun. So, no, I didn't mean it like that. But do things in a different way. So, let's do this idea of tools. So, quickly, 2 ways to handle misbehavior. One is you wait till your child misbehaves, does something wrong, and then you react and you give a consequence. In essence, what we're saying is, I'm going to punish you for failing. But the opposite way of doing that is saying, I know that my son struggles, or my daughter, so I'm going to give him or her tools to succeed. I'm going to create successes. I noticed something early on. What's your name? Control, dude. Justin. So, Dustin?
I'm in control.
Dustin. Okay. Sit down. Okay. I know, I got him all worked up. He's okay. Perfect example. Dustin or Justin, either one, basically is a 10-year-old with ADHD, okay, in class. Yeah, I saw you were bouncing you're bouncing your leg. So here's the idea. Let me give you an idea of tools. Let me do this one first. Most of you have kids who struggle with focus and attention. I'm going to do these quickly. This is a sensory strip. It's double-sided tape, and on this side are some little textury strips. Nothing magical, costs 12 cents to make. Science and research say when kids play with textured objects, it improves concentration. Fidgeting is actually very, very helpful for the learning process. Most of you in here are playing with things. Even crackling that little bottle and drinking is a form of fidgeting. It keeps you engaged. Your movement, you're tapping your pen right there. You keep doing it. That's good. Now you just, look, when you stop that, your legs started moving. Look, that's brain science. And we do this awful thing to our kids of stop fidgeting. You're basically saying stop doing the very thing that's helping your brain process better. So we need, now your foot's moving in a different way, you freak. So, I'm just kidding. So this is a child's desk at school. I tape that underneath the child's desk. Nobody can see it. That child can play with this thing all day long. It doesn't make any noise. He can't whack his classmates in the face with it. It's a tool to help with concentration. It doesn't change the whole day, but a few times when I was zoning out, I had something to touch, or if I wanted to play with my classmate's face or hair, because some of you have kids that are busy with their hands, and just saying, hands to yourself. It's never going to work unless you give them something appropriate to do. So, Dustin's in my class, and I walk in, and I see those legs moving. I know he needs to move. I don't need a diagnosis. I just know he needs to move. It's not that hard. So, if I don't give him an opportunity to move, 14 minutes into class, he's going to get up and walk around the class. Dustin, look at me. Hey, 1, 2, 3, eyes on me. Look. You can't do that. Negative, take things away. Send a note home to the parents. Dustin, why can't you sit still in school? And then his life becomes one day after another of him being on red on the behavior chart until he finally says, screw all of you. Because nobody likes me and I can never be successful. Why even bother? So I pull him aside and say, Dustin, I could really use your help, man. When I teach in class, my mouth gets dry. I need to drink some water, and I know you need to move. Again, no label. I only say it's clear you have ADHD. I don't need to know. I just know he needs to move. So you and I are going to have a secret signal. When I do this or this, here's what I want you to do. You get up out of your seat, you come up to my desk, grab my water bottle, take it to the back of the room, refill it, bring it back up, sit on my desk, you sit down. You're not going to talk to anybody. You're not going to distract anybody. You're going to be Mr. Invisible. Little kids love that. Middle schoolers get beat up for being Mr. Invisible, so leave that part out. So watch, I'm teaching in class. I know he needs to move. So I give him the signal. He comes up, grabs the water bottle, does the little job. It takes him 23 seconds. And here's why I like it. I gave him 23 seconds of appropriate movement within my boundaries. I didn't say if you get bored, run around. I gave him a specific, concrete job. Your kids are really good at doing specific missions, purposeful things. Not just you need to be on your best behavior. I don't know what that means. This was a specific job. It's concrete. He can hold it. When he's back there at the water fountain refilling the water bottle, here's what he's thinking. I don't always know what page of the math book I'm supposed to be on. I don't always get invited to the class birthday party, but I'm really good at doing my job. And when he puts that water bottle on my table, I get to say, fist bump, good job, thank you. And here's the phrase I would write down, I just created a success. Because if I don't, you're in trouble all day long. You're just a bad kid. I can't help that. You just need to stop it. So next week, Dustin comes in. I said, Dustin, last week, good helper, my friend. This week, I believe you're capable for sitting for 23 minutes before you need to move. So after 14 minutes, I'm going to look at you, but no secret signal, because I believe you're capable of waiting. And then I slowly begin to train him to go from 14 minutes to 19 to 23 to 28 in third grade. He may just be able to sit for 28. Progress, not perfection. Right? Does that make sense? Tools. So I encourage you with this, with your spouse, with teachers, for the next 2 weeks, and the next 2 years, but next 2 weeks, time your child is struggling, instead of going right to, well, what consequence are we going to give? Step back and say, what are 2 or 3 different tools we can give our child to create successes? And then come in behind and say, that was good. That's how you do it. Short and sweet, with some intensity, with that's what I'm looking for. That shows me you're growing up. They'll begin to do where they get the brain stimulation, right? Does that make sense at all? So I wish we could do, we're at 8:29. I know I didn't get to everything, so let me close up this way. We'll stay afterwards, so if you have questions, stay. I can do more on discipline. If anybody wants, this is up to you if you want to stay and do it. I have an example on first-time obedience. If that's a big deal, I don't know if that's a big deal among people that get tripped up on that. Does anybody get, or do it the first time, like right away? I'll do it, but I want to release, and then I'll do it really quickly, my version of that, because sometimes that helps families not have power struggles. So let me close up this way. Thank you all for coming out. Thank you to the church for hosting us, for organizing all of this. We've got, let's do our giveaway. Bring the giveaway up. Thank you for coming out. If I didn't get to something, stay afterwards. I'll answer your questions. Our email address, Casey's email address, I think is on the bottom of the handout. Emails, tell us you met us here in San Antonio, because it makes it personal for us. If you get that little packet of the Calm Parenting package, those programs, I would listen to the Strong-Willed Child one first, or the ADHD University, because they teach you how your kids think and how their brains work, and it's very, very foundational. As you go through the programs, if you have questions, email us. Again, tell us, just put Rosario's in the subject line, and we'll read it, because it makes it more personal for us, and we'll be glad to help. But thank you all. 2 things. I hope all of your kids have a nasty meltdown in the next day, so you can practice this while it's fresh. And enjoy. Write that word down. I want you to enjoy your daughter, because we stop enjoying our kids because they're so difficult. But when you start enjoying them, you start seeing things differently in them, and you start understanding them. And they're still going to be difficult, but then enjoying her and saying, man, because she's going to change your life. She's going to root out, your kids are going to root out all those control issues in you, most of them, and it's going to liberate you to actually enjoy life more, because now you're not so rigid and caught in things. So, okay, let's choose. And I'll do the first time obedience, if that's okay.
In case anybody is leaving, I just wanted to do a closing prayer real quick. Is anybody leaving? Okay, closing prayer real quick, and then we'll draw and finish out real quick. Okay. Lord, thank you so much for bringing us all here and for the wisdom from Mr. Kirk Martin's experience that he shared with us today. May it not fall on deaf ears. May we go out and remember it and utilize it to continue to disciple our children. Thank you for the blessings that they are, for our calling as parents, and for guiding us and giving us discernment to do it your way, Lord. We just ask for protection as we head home and over these next couple of weeks as we try to implement some of the tools that we've learned tonight. Thank you for all that you do, for your grace and forgiveness as we fail daily as parents and otherwise. In your son's name we pray. Amen. Okay, we'll do the drawing real quick.
Book bundles.
Yes. Here's your